Ready? This video is part 1. Y'all are getting 3 full-length videos this week, folks. You might as well pack the content. Do not get scared by the video length, partners. Stick around for the first half of this video and you can walk out of here with 2 full levels of a dungeon. We're gonna discuss some practical procedures, some philosophical context to why we do what we do, ethical considerations, and finally, some objections. So here's how I made 2 full levels of a dungeon in absolutely no time at all. You don't need to limit yourself to 5-room dungeons, folks. In fact, I think 5-room dungeons are insane. The dungeons we're about to make clearly provide plenty of opportunities to restock the dungeon, explain where new creatures and loot are arriving from, to use as hooks for environmental challenges, and more. Real dungeons, the stuff we're making here, are solutions to fake problems imposed by shallow, first-level, 5-room dungeons and every content derived from them. Let's get started. First tool on our list is called Midjourney. This is an AI-based image generator. It works by opening up Discord, entering a prompt, and observing whatever the AI spits out. It'll generate 4 separate but related images based on the prompt you entered. You can then ask it to generate variants of these images, or upscale a variant to maximum size and quality. Here's the deal, folks. Go to Midjourney, type in D&D map with a descriptor. We're gonna try Hold to the Underdark. Now, Midjourney can be tricky to mess around with, and the maps you generate will surely not be of sufficient quality to use as is. However, they will provide some lines and shapes you can use as the rough outline for your dungeon and its rooms. It's a step when we later bake these results into a full dungeon, but you can do it now. Moving on. There are a total of 25 tables in Gary Gygax's Appendix A of the DM's Guide of 1st Edition, between 8 tables and their various subtables. These contain virtually everything you need to produce a dungeon. In fact, you don't need GPT-3 or Midjourney to make a dungeon. I just used AI as clickbait to introduce this appendix, shamelessly. You could stop watching now, I don't mind, so long as you start rolling up a dungeon, but for those of you curious as to how I mix this tool and others together, or why I use the 1E version of Appendix A, keep watching. Now for mapping the AI image, Table 5 and subtables F through J along with tables 6 through 8 along with their various subtables will be the most relevant. But we're still going to roll on the other tables as if we were developing a dungeon without a visual template. Here's our secret. We're going to reuse our roles for the 2nd level of the dungeon. Because our AI template is so visually distinct from the room shapes and sizes prescribed by the tables, we don't have to worry about the reused results feeling stale. We've included a handout below allowing you to follow along and roll some tables, but let's check out these tables first. Table 1 is titled Periodic Checks. It's handy for surprising the players or monitoring their progress as the party moves on. Once every 60 inches, I believe, is the prescription. Table 2 is Doors. It just details where a door might lead and directs you to the other tables to roll on, dictating what's on the other side. I initially thought it detailed the type of door. Funnily enough, the 5th edition DMG does describe the type of door in their Appendix A, also used for generating random dungeons. Thanks to Meg the Dungeon Mistress, she led myself and others through a demonstration of 5e's Appendix A last evening. Table 3 and its 2 subtables, A and B, detail side passages. You're given a direction, a type of corridor, a width, and potentially a special variety of side passage like a stream or a cave. It's why I referenced 5-room dungeons earlier. How many folks are putting streams in their dungeons? Table 4 handles any turns in the dungeon. Super simple, degree and direction, that's all. Table 5 is where things get interesting, and it has the largest number of subtables. It's chambers and room sizes to start off with. It's followed by a couple of subtables for unusual shape and size, followed by 3 subtables describing exits. But after all of this, we finally come to the tables where we'll be using most for our AI dungeon. Table 5F is a table about room contents, treasure, treasure containers, means of hiding and defending treasure, tricks and traps, gas and stairs are all results or sub-results of this table. We'll discuss these tables more when we get to the baking section. Table 6 is for describing stairs, which is surprisingly important and surprisingly rare, but because the results of stairs can lead to a staircase going upwards into a level of the dungeon, basically every single room has twice the potential chance to have a set of stairs going into or out of them. But you don't realize this until you produce multiple levels. Now, Table 7 is about tricks and traps. It's involved, but you can read the table on your own, and when we do our Part 2, we're gonna get into it. It also has a subtable about gases. Say, do y'all remember when I mentioned folks exiting a dungeon back in the 1-to-1 time video? Check out a result on this table. Gas that sends the party back to the entrance. It's like Gygax knew his own rules. Table 8 is about caves and caverns, with subtables about lakes, pools, and magic varieties of each. Caverns are specified as existing in the lower levels of a dungeon, and Gygax had very good reason for this. Enchanted pools or lakes which can lead you to exotic realms or improve your game statistics have a good chance of being guarded by monsters, and the size and shapes of these caverns, as well as their contents, are better suited for the deadlier, larger, and harder to kill critters which are supposed to be relegated to the deeper sections of a dungeon. So, how do we use all this nonsense? Well, go to the table 5F. Make one roll for every prospective room you think you'll draw on your AI-generated template. This will determine the contents of each room you develop. Lots of the rooms will be empty, and that's okay. Empty rooms give party members an opportunity to set a trap, rest for a bit, or otherwise fortify their position in the dungeon. Make sure to list your results. They're critical for making this process work later. Let's move on to AI text descriptions. OpenAI has a Playground tab. It exists for text completion. Now, we've just gone through a total of 25 tables describing rooms and their contents. As it turns out, the results of these tables, when rolled and formatted properly, are excellent fodder for GPT-3. Chatbots seem to like or prefer the following phrases for generating dungeon dressing: set dressing, unnatural appearance, aesthetic vibe, references to color, plant and animal life, magic, weather, and light sources other than torches. Chatbots will unfortunately loop into similar descriptions if you use the following phrases. Hell, sometimes you have to specify the chatbot use a description other than these. Torches, unspecified treasure, dungeon rooms with no modifiers, light sources coming from outside. If you go to the handout in our description, you'll find some of the room results I developed described by GPT-3. Put it in the oven, partner. We're going to take the results of every tool we've used to generate details of our dungeon so far and mix them together. Baking our dungeon has 2 sets of steps. First up is modifying the AI template. If you haven't already, draw lines to generate rooms on your AI template and label them. Use letters to denote groups or lines of rooms and numbers to indicate an expected progression between these rooms. 2. Each time you draw one of these rooms, match it to your list of generated rooms from first to last, ignoring the entrance. Number 3. Add the contents of a generated room to the drawn room. Number 4. Roll a periodic check, Table 1, each time you add content to a room. Now the rooms and results you've generated for the dungeon will differ significantly from the overlaid image generated by Midjourney, but do not worry, here's what y'all are gonna do. Number 1. Use your results from the periodic checks to determine where to draw new rooms and side passages in the second level of the dungeon. Step 2. Generate the size, shape, and other qualities of these rooms according to your tables. Number 3. Each time you would draw a room or chamber, you'll once again match it to your list of generated rooms, but this time, you'll be matching the list from last to first. Number 4. Update treasure totals of these rooms according to their level. Number 5. Flip monster and non-monster treasure results for each of these rooms. If the listed room had a monster guarding the treasure, have the drawn room's treasure unguarded. If the room has treasure not guarded by a monster, have it guarded by a monster. Number 6. Flip the hidden nature of treasure. If treasure was hidden in the listed room, it will not be hidden in the drawn room. Number 7. Do this for traps. If a slice of treasure was trapped, make it untrapped. If a slice of treasure was not trapped, then it's time to make it trapped. Congratulations, y'all now have 2 layers of a dungeon generated with hardly any work and which couldn't be easier to modify. All that's left to do now is either get some friends together and start playing this dungeon, or y'all can stick around and we're gonna have a healthy long chat about some internet arguments around using AI, using generators, creativity. We're gonna establish our philosophical framework and objections. But for those of you who've stuck with the video for this long, thank you. So surely you all have heard of blank page syndrome, writer's block, HIV. Sometimes good attention is just a matter of throwing a curveball. Whatever the specific term y'all have been exposed to, anyone with a creative bent has experienced it. But I'm gonna plus your definition, get a bit of galaxy brain going. Blank page syndrome is when the lack of production in whatever medium you can currently see or access plays an active competitive role in your head and exists opposed to the material you would otherwise happily scribble down and iterate on. In other words, blank page syndrome is unrealized space, actively choking out whatever might otherwise try to fill it. The weeds are no longer in the garden, the weeds are the garden. The white space on your canvas or computer has become the project's final completed form. The empty editing window in your motion graphics program of choice is your realized masterpiece. The longer you stare at a blank page, the longer it eats up the words in your head. You become stuck in a feedback loop where the longer you go without being productive, the less capacity you have to be productive. Lucky for us, there's a cure to break this creativity-eating cycle, and it's as easy as rolling a die or looking something up on Google. Prompts are this cure, but I want to get into a brief discussion of what prompts are not. Their utility has to be actively defended against misinterpretation, so I'll be taking up my post now. Y'all may have heard the phrase, creativity is made by constraints. This is a popular phrase, repeated ad nauseum by folks who've never done anything creative in their entire lives, but love inflicting needless roadblocks and restrictions for other folks to stumble through. For those of us not following our socialized urge to maximize human suffering wherever we can, it's important to know where this phrase comes from. Like most common wisdom, it's a bit of real golden knowledge bastardized and ruined by attempts to explain it to the common folk. Constraints do not generate creativity. Constraints eliminate categories of responses by design and strata of creativity by accident. If I tell y'all to give me as many uses for a brick as y'all can think of in 30 seconds, hell, do that. Pause the video for 30 seconds to a minute and write down your responses. You can post them in the comments later to show off. Ready? Start. Alright, time's up. How many of your responses match the following 3 categories? Burglary tool, obstruction device, paperweight. When folks try to list out as many uses for a brick as they can, most of them think of paperweights, door stoppers, and using it to break a window. They move on to other responses sometimes, but these are the most common. They're low creative responses. Believe it or not, this says nothing about your creativity. See, the constraints we dictated in this example were, give me as many uses for this item as you can, you have 30 seconds, the item in question is a brick. Notice the constraints here did not turn any of you into brilliant engineers or architects. It did not open technological wonders or advancements in science, though, believe it or not, inventing the experiment did. The constraints on the experiment leveled the creative playing field, forced you to give responses anyone would have given with a few outliers. The constraint wiped out creative responses more dynamic household objects would have produced. The experiment is to test one aspect of creativity called fluency. That detail's not actually relevant here, but it's insurance against a specific comment I'm expecting. The reason I go into such detail, exposing what a prompt is not, is to keep folks from having their healthy desire for creativity used against them. A prompt's first purpose is to inspire. The goal is to produce a reaction from the creator in question. If the creator follows the prompt, they have a beachhead into the blank space choking them out. If they think the prompt is stupid, they still have a beachhead. They just need to express their reaction by writing it down or engaging in creative production. Prompts are a naturally dynamic foundation for creative production. Y'all can even think of the difference between prompts and constraints as being the difference between the responses each one produces. Now, how on earth does this relate to Dungeons? See, Gygax provided us with an entire appendix's worth of tables one could use to generate a dungeon and its contents back in AD&D. Gygax understood that staring at a blank piece of graph paper was not the most productive use of your time. He also knew the dungeons you did manage to generate ex nihilo would be inferior, would miss some elements critical to a veritable delve into the underworld. With experience comes a greater defense against blank page syndrome, and a greater ability to generate new dungeons all on your lonesome. Even still, nothing will get you designing faster than rolling on these tables, designing for or against the results, and populating your dungeon accordingly. Now here's where chatbots like GPT-3 and image AI like Midjourney come in. If y'all type D&D map with any accompanying descriptors, you'll reliably get top-down view maps vaguely connected to your prompt. They're not good enough to serve as maps as is, even for weird, extraplanar realms as far as I'm concerned. However, they do make for an actual visual base for painted backgrounds and fantastic visual prompts when they resemble dungeons. Look at the image on screen here. You can see exactly where you'd place walls, secret doors, treasure rooms, traps and ambushes, environmental hazards. This might as well be a ready-made blueprint to a dungeon. All it took was typing in some prompts and rolling some dice. We can even spruce it up with some simple software. Well, partners, we can't avoid it. There's a lot of arguing going on about artificial intelligence, and we'd frankly better settle it before moving on. Stealing words. We will not start with the common manifestation of internet arguments over AI. Everyone is already familiar with arguments over image meshing, but what about text? Tabletop designers are making 8 to 15 cents per word on average. Most of my freelancers receive about 15 to 20 cents per word on average. The worst of these freelancers struggle to output small 200 or less word chunks of content and can't be trusted to mess with core rules neither. Even the better freelancers take a while to meet their word counts, whether they're handling core rules or content. You'd expect an advanced text completion program would wipe out the majority of a freelancer's work. Now curiously, the fellas whining about art theft ain't nearly as upset about the presumably equal, if not greater theft about to hit the backbone of the tabletop industry where it hurts most. Well, words are more common. We make use of a select, small set of about 500 words for the majority of common speech and communication. The margin between good writing for any particular medium and the common vocabulary is thinner than the margin between your average scribbling and a visual masterpiece. So what then? Are chatbots going to wipe out the tabletop writers forever? No. In fact, chatbots offer the worst freelancers of this industry a chance to be productive for once. Folks suffering from writer's block who would otherwise be creative have been handed a solution for their problems on a silver platter. But as for whether they will use it and what percentage of hungry but unproductive freelancers will be wiped out by these programs, we're saving this topic for another day. I'll just wrap up by saying that freelancers can use these chatbots to accelerate their production, and the chatbots probably can't be used to copy particularly creative outputs. Stealing art. Pull bandanas over your faces, folks. Pretend it's 2020. Turns out this is a robbery. I've been informed by a reliable source that using AI to produce images is stealing. Now, I'm not going to rehash every and all debates over image-focused learning models. What I will do is give you my opinion and reasoning concerning a few specific arguments. Number 1. I think using AI to reproduce a specific image or sufficiently similar variant should be considered theft, especially if presented as your own. I think presenting the work without explicit reference to the source artist is rude. I can think of 2 YouTube channels which took a tremendous discovery from a friend of mine and gave him absolutely no credit when presenting it in videos which received hundreds of thousands of views. I called those folks out. Special shout out to Super Geek Mike and Questing Beast. I thought it was not neighborly behavior, and I still think they should apologize. Bad chance. Number 2. Mashing images together which do not represent an existing work or are not intended to represent an existing work do not constitute some kind of ethical breach. Number 3. The activity we're engaged in here definitively does not constitute theft of an artist's work. Before the introduction of Midjourney, my 2 options for creating dungeon rooms were either doing it wholesale in Cinema 4D before taking a render, or using Dungeon Paint Studio. Number 4. These maps are for our home games, not for sale or other professional use. We're just meshing a few textures together for an easier time making the dungeon we were already planning to develop on our lonesome. Y'all know we should probably address any other objections we can think of here. While the following probably ain't ethical objections, folks still present these complaints and appear to care about them as if they were. Just be creative. Some folks love nothing more than humble bragging their way into your mentions and comment sections, gloating about how they don't need any tools or help to aid their profound creativity, creating a dungeon, making a class, describing a room, whatever have you. If y'all want to lay it on the table like that, so be it. Sometimes I'm forced into easy victories, nothing to be done about it. When's the last time our hypothetical genius threw a tornado at the players? When's the last time their dungeon included an aquarium, exotic machinery the players could mess around with? When's the last time their party explored a hollow or other natural dungeon, came across weather control devices? Hell, I haven't even gotten to the more exotic stuff yet, and I just wiped out about half of our annoying braggarts off the map. Might I suggest we stick to bragging about the creative process? You are not interesting or particularly creative, though you might be a little fluent, for drawing lines on graph paper all by your lonesome. Your squiggly curves and other makeshift indications of caves are not the end-all be-all of artistic achievement. Swapping the armor class of kobolds and goblins is not your PhD thesis. When I develop new and unique encounters for my players to froth at, I ain't interested in keeping them all to my lonesome. I want procedure to spread these unique events far and wide, proxies to act as proper context for deploying these encounters, and buffers to keep them from being too common or never showing up in the first place. What will be my long and storied life of coming up with cool and unique encounters should not be of interest to your table, especially not compared to how I make these encounters available for everyone to deploy and play. So why should one person's boring excuse to toot their own horn be of any relevance to what we're doing here? Be spontaneous. Following from our last objection, the idea you can just make stuff up on the fly. You know, we all do love when a dungeon's encounters are speedy, the descriptions flow and make sense, the combats are prepared. We all love when a dungeon is so responsive to the party there's no delay to be found between the party's actions and the dungeon's reactions. But tell me y'all, what do we love even more than a hyper-responsive dungeon complete with descriptions, ready-to-use loot, and prepared combat encounters? Stuttering through half-baked visuals of another identical 10-foot hallway, storage closets filled with trash and sackcloth, encounters that take 20 minutes to set up, and long silences between the party's activities. Come on now, we all know that content prepared ahead of time is more enjoyable to engage with. You'll never improve. Some folks will take the above and claim that if you always use advice, generators, image messers, any tool of any variety, that you will never make better descriptions, you will never make better dungeons, you will never make better art on your own. This is a thinly disguised humble brag by loudmouths who probably have no business bragging at all. Sure, it is impressive when artists make a piece of art with no reference at all, but references speed up the artistic process and often make the result higher quality. The reference sets a baseline for quality. How should this thing look? Using tools to enhance your tabletop games sets a baseline for the quality of your dungeon mastering. That's why they're good. My current campaign, Chill Miss Valley, was off to a pretty rocky start with all the time that I'd have to spend mid-session to prepare an encounter properly. The dead air was not good for the campaign, but I committed myself to making sure that all of my descriptions were better, all of my encounter types were interesting, the quest hooks were attractive to players, there were piles of good loot, and there was pretty efficient and informative NPC dialogue. Now, why did I commit to this in spite of all this dead air? Well, the commitment forced me to find better ways of producing a minimum bar of quality faster. I had to develop my own personal pipeline. Finding ways to raise your baseline of quality creates your very own personalized pipeline for generating new and fun material, just as it did mine. I had to figure out which image meshers I'd use, which monster generators were better or worse for making sure I could keep my encounters, efficient and on time. That baseline commitment forced me to find as many tools as I could to produce as much quality as I could in as fast a time as I possibly could. The pressure I inflicted on myself is what made me improve. And the tools are what I use to do it. Thanks for listening, folks. Be sure to hit the like button, share this with your friends. We would like to grow this channel. And finally, don't forget to hit that. Wait, did I mention the bell icon? Damn it, I'm forgetting already. Music was provided by Blue Dot Sessions. I don't even know if I'm gonna add their music this time. We'll see. Peace.